Her book club met on Thursdays. My bar wasn't on the reading list. The thing about lipstick is that it remembers. It remembers kisses you'd swear never happened and rooms you shouldn't have been in. It remembers the glass it met and the mouth that wore it. Thursday night, closing shift, I found a kiss I didn't recognize stamped on a rocks glass in my speakeasy. Deep berry, expensive. The kind my wife reserves for anniversaries and job interviews. The glass sat alone in the little private lounge behind the velvet curtain, room 6, where I host quiet tastings for people who like to whisper about whiskey, as if it were a secret worth keeping. I run the Flicker, a bar tucked beneath an old art house cinema. The staircase is a spine of scarred wood. The banister still remembers teenage hands slipping away from the world upstairs. We've got a screen behind the bar that loops black and white films without sound, and cocktails named after cinema's sinners. The femme fatale has a cap of jasmine foam. The confession is just rye and honesty. Tess, my wife, is a copywriter who can make a grocery list sound like a love letter. She hates the word moist and loves late-night walks. On Thursdays, she says, she has book club. I've never seen a book cross our threshold afterward, only the kind of glow that comes from laughing at the right time with the right people. I never asked where they met. I liked imagining Tess in a nest of women who adored her as much as I do. I liked the idea of something in her life that didn't require my hands. But there was that lipstick on a glass in my hidden room, and the reservation ledger said the table had been held from 8 to 10 by someone who wrote their name like a smirk. No last name. No phone number. Cash payment. The only other sign they'd been there at all was a napkin with a sentence in Tess's handwriting. Don't make this a story unless I say so. I turned the napkin over to see if it would give me a second answer. Who had room 6? I asked Zadie, my bartender. Zadie is all eagle eyes and mercy. She knows how to keep a secret without making it feel like a prison. Couple, she said, drying a glass, or 2 people pretending not to be one. What did they order? She grinned without humor. 2 whiskey sours, no cherry on hers. He took the cherry like it owed him rent. Names. Didn't offer, didn't ask. The woman had a laugh that bought the room a drink. Zadie looked at me then, measuring. You want me to tell you what I think? No, I said, because my stomach had already told me. Yes. I think you know her laugh. The Flicker has a mirror opposite the bar that used to be a window into the cinema. When the theater stopped using it, I had it silvered. Behind it, there's a narrow corridor where a person can stand very still and feel like a ghost. The day I built it, I promised myself it was for ambience, not surveillance. That's the trouble with promises. They don't change what's possible. I went home to an apartment that smelled like clementines and Tess's shampoo, the expensive kind that's sold as winter, as if you can wash January into your hair. She was on the couch, legs folded under her, watching a documentary about swans with the sound low. How was book club? I asked, tasting the question like something that might bite. We argued about a metaphor for 2 hours, she said, not looking up. You would have hated it. Everyone says liminal space like they learned it yesterday. I kissed her temple. Guilty, I said lightly, and the guilt wasn't about the word. That night I dreamed I was pouring a drink that never filled. The sound of liquid on ice grew louder until I woke to the silence. Tess's hand had found my chest in her sleep. She does that when the world feels sharp. I covered her fingers with mine and lay there thinking about the napkin, the lipstick, the reservation that had been a smirk instead of a name. By morning, I'd done a thing men do when they want to be clever and considerate at the same time. I planned an event and called it Love. Members' night, I told Tess at breakfast, spooning honey into her tea like sweetness was a strategy. Tomorrow, midnight, closed to the public. Zadie's curating a flight of whiskeys that taste like secrets and Luna's performing. Tess brightened. She loves Luna. Everyone loves Luna. She sings like a door being opened in a quiet house. Should I invite the book club? Tess asked, with a carefulness I almost missed. Absolutely, I said, pretending that the word didn't feel like standing on ice. Bring whoever you want. The next night, the flicker looked like a rumor. Candles in old film canisters. The projector blinking a rinse of light across the bottles so that everything wore a soft echo. Luna tuned her guitar at the far corner of the bar, testing a phrase like the taste of a new word. Zadie moved with the confidence of a person who decided your heart could be rescued. At 11:58, Tess walked in wearing a red silk scarf I'd given her 2 birthdays ago. The room bent slightly to make space for her. 3 women trailed behind, smiling, cheeks lit with the expectation of being entertained. And then a man, late, confident, hat tipped like a joke he'd told himself. I knew the kind of man he was before I knew his face. Shoulders that had learned to enter doors first, a jaw sharpened by compliments. He was good-looking the way a mistake is good-looking. Tess greeted Zadie by name, kissed my cheek, and introduced the club as if she'd just invented it. When she said the man's name, she skipped the last name like it was a pebble she decided not to throw. Gabe. I'd expected something more like G. He smiled at me like we were friends who hadn't met yet. He was the kind of handsome that could be a profession. Welcome to the flicker, I said, because it's my job to say it even when the person I'm saying it to is already in the room I'm worried about. First round's on me. We started soft, smoke on the nose, honey on the whisper. Luna sang something old and slow. Tess leaned on the bar, half turned to me, half turned away to share a laugh with the women. Gabe stood at the corner with the posture of someone who expects to be photographed. When he finally caught my eye, he raised his glass in a toast that could mean anything. Zadie handed me a coaster, slid it across the wood like a note in class. Do you want to open the lounge? I looked at Tess. She was flushed and beautiful, the scarf undone at one end like it had forgotten its job. A strand of hair clung to her lip until she caught it with her tongue. It's a small thing, an old thing, the way your body answers to the person you love. My chest hurt with wanting, and in that hurt was a small, mean hope that she'd ask for the lounge, that I'd say yes, that I'd have to decide how brave I was. Let's give the members something special, I told Zadie. Room 6, candles, 2 plates. I didn't say 2, I didn't have to. Maybe if I hadn't built the ghost corridor. Maybe if I hadn't turned a window into a mirror. But I did, and I walked it now, quiet as guilt, to the slot that shows you the lounge if you put your eye close enough to forget who you are. Tess and Gabe were inside. She was untying the scarf, letting it dangle like a red rule no one remembered writing. He had removed his hat and placed it on the leather bench as if he wanted to prove he knew how to be gentle. They sat too close the way a storm sits too close to a roof, nothing happening yet, everything preparing to. Tell me a story, Tess said, and my heart slurred. It's our game. When I can't sleep, when she can't come, when the world feels unearned, we say tell me a story. We let words do what hands can't without leaving marks. It never meant this. Gabe obliged with the baritone confidence of a man who'd learned that a slow voice makes lies sound paid for. He talked about Paris, about poetry, about the way ash falls from a cigarette as if the air had been rehearsing. He put his fingers lightly around Tess's wrist as though her pulse were an instrument he'd been invited to tune. She didn't pull away. She looked at his mouth when he wasn't talking. I should have walked in. I should have left. I did the thing men do when their pride is louder than their fear. I sent Zadie. She went with a tray and 2 cocktails I hadn't put on the menu because nomming them felt petty. The first was rye and lemon and a whisper of absinthe. I called it the alibi. The second was rye and nothing else at all. I called it the fact. From the house, she said, setting one in front of each of them. Zadie has a way of making kindness sound like a threat. Tess looked toward the door as if she could feel my eye in the wall. For a moment, our marriage passed between us without touching the air. Then she took a sip of the fact. Gabe took the alibi like a dare. When the door clicked again, it was me. "Happy Thursday," I said, closing it behind me. Up close, the room smelled like cedar and something sweet I didn't recognize. The scarf lay loose around Tess's neck like a red line. "Lucas," she said, saying my name the way people say we're still us, aren't we? Gabe stood and offered his hand because men like him have a ritual for disaster. I shook it because I'm a gracious host. "I was just telling Tess about a poem," he said, as if I'd interrupted literature. "I love poems," I said lightly. "They're like lies with better posture." Silence fell into the space between us and unfolded a chair. I turned to Tess. "Do you want me to leave?" "No," she said quickly. "I want you to stay." "Then tell me what this is." "A mistake," she said, but in her mouth it sounded like a hope. Gabe took the hint well for a man who had built a life on not taking them. He picked up his hat, placed a 20 on the table that made me want to throw it back at his face, and said, "I'll be downstairs." He left without the usual string of apologies. The door clicked shut with a precision that made me hate hinges. Tess and I sat. The distance between our knees was an accusation and an invitation. "I kissed him once," she said, the words rushing out like something escaping a burning building. "2 weeks ago, after his reading. It was nothing like us. It felt like being someone else for a second. I told him I'm married. I told myself I wouldn't do it again. Tonight was supposed to be neutral ground. Then you made this beautiful thing and You're not going to blame my candles for this," I said. The anger had finally arrived, patient and dressed for dinner. "And you're not going to call it poetry to make it prettier." She shook her head. Her eyes were wet and stubborn. Tess doesn't cry to be forgiven. She cries when she's tired of holding the truth by herself. "I miss the way you touch me when you're not trying to be perfect," she said softly. We turned into hosts in our own house. We're always inviting the best versions of ourselves and sending the rest home hungry. That landed like a key in a lock. We'd gotten good at marriage, which is another way to say we'd gotten predictable. I know where Tess likes to be kissed when the day has been unkind. She knows how to unbutton my shirt with one hand while opening a bottle with the other. We know how to make a weeknight feel like a, well, book club. Familiar can wear thin when the world keeps selling you newness as a cure. "I'm not a new man," I said, "but I'm still your man." She slid closer on the bench. The scarf brushed my wrist like an invitation. She took my hand and placed it against the warm column of her neck. No one would get demonetized for what happened next. No clothes came off, no dramatic score swelled. We let our foreheads touch and breathed each other's names like we were daring them to change. Her mouth found mine with the kind of urgency that solves math. If we'd been a noir, the camera would have cut away. It didn't need to see what we were deciding. When we stopped, the room was the same size, and we were different people. "I'll text him," she said. "It ends. No whatever this is, no drafts, no edits, I pick us." "Okay," I said. "Then we also pick something else. We pick messy. We pick asking for what we want before silence gets to keep it. We pick touching in the kitchen on Tuesdays for no reason. We pick not letting our marriage be a museum of better nights." She laughed, short and surprised. "Who writes your copy?" Specialist in warm things, I said. It's what my first Tinder bio had claimed I was. She'd messaged prove it, and I've been proofing for her since. We went back out to the bar hand in hand. Luna was midway through a song that made every person in the room think of the best mistake they never made. Gabe had the sense to be gone. Tess stood at the end of the bar and said loudly enough to be heard by exactly one person, "One more fact, please." Zadie raised an eyebrow at me. I nodded. We didn't announce a moral to the room because most rooms already have one. The book club women ordered another round and pretended nothing unusual had occurred, which is the kindest lie friends tell. After last call, after the glasses were stacked and the floor learned to be clean again, Tess and I walked home slowly, shoulders touching on purpose. Our apartment smelled like clementines in winter and something else that might have been relief. In the morning, I found a text on my phone from an unknown number, but the signature was obvious. "Gabe, no hard feelings. You're a lucky man." I deleted it. I walked into the kitchen where Tess was making coffee in my favorite ugly mug, her scarf looped in her hair like she'd found a new use for danger. She handed me the mug and kissed my jaw for punctuation. "Read anything good lately?" I asked. "Oh, a masterwork," she said, eyes bright. "It's about a couple who almost forgot they were allowed to write new chapters." "Any action scenes?" She grinned, sly and shameless, and slid a hand into the back pocket of my jeans. "Nothing that would break community guidelines," she said, and pressed her mouth to mine like a closing argument. "The flicker opens at 5. I'll be there. The mirror will still be a mirror. The corridor will still be a corridor. We'll keep serving the confession and the alibi and the fact to people who like their truth in a glass. And when Thursday comes, Tess will kiss me on her way out and say book club because the word still makes her laugh. I'll tell her to take notes. She'll say she'll try. And later, when she comes back, we'll read each other the ones that matter."